For me, I don't think the question is whether or not you're failing. I think the question is whether or not you're improving. So even if you fail, are you failing forward? So in my business, I've spent the past 4 years failing. So when an outside person looks at my balance sheet, they've gone, what are you doing? You're eroding value. You're losing money. What I know is I'm getting smarter. I'm learning about the trigger points of businesses. I'm learning at the stages at which we're good. Because some guys are phenomenal at startup. I am terrible at startup. I don't have the patience for startups. But what I am great at is a growth business. When you got 2 or 3 customers, you want to get to 30 customers, that's my game. So when I say, are you failing? The question should be, I'm learning. Imagine you're a sportsman, right? I mean, Usain Bolt didn't run a 9.58 the first time he got on the track, but he ran it at the Olympics. You got to think about yourself in the same way. You have the potential to run a 9.58. You're just not going to run it the first time you get on the track.
So this is great, and I'm glad Vusi's being transparent and sharing. If it's your first 4 times running a business, right, you're going to be making a lot of mistakes, right? So the goal of becoming a great CEO is not that you never made mistakes. It's whether you can actually learn from your mistakes and apply whatever you learn to future actions, to your present and future actions. So if you're making mistakes, you're failing, you're messing up, think of it, you're failing forward, you're continuing to learn, The game is survival, right? Especially when you're starting out, everybody talks $1 million, $10 million. The game is surviving. Can you stay alive, right? So you can keep on learning and be in the game. So when it's finally time for you to take off, you still have enough gas in your car where you can really take off, okay? Actually, before I get into it, let me share a story about myself. So when I say learning, you learn so much in business. My first company that I started at my last year of law school, mind you, I went to a phenomenal law school. I also audited an MBA while I was there. I took free class at the business school for the equivalent of an MBA. I just didn't want to pay the 200 to 300 grand, so I did not get the degree, but I sat in all the classes. And I can tell you, running my first business, I learned more in that first year than all 2.5 years of law school up to that, than all 1.5 years of business school up till then. So you learn so much by actually doing the thing. And I was failing spectacularly, but we were connecting people around the world. I was learning what makes people tick, what is a good value proposition for one side of our chicken and egg platform, right? And what's a good value proposition for the other side of our platform. So with that said, you have to take that process and learn it. And that's why most entrepreneurs do not succeed in their first business. It's usually their 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. Really, it's their 7th. But most people don't succeed because there's just so much to learn. Right? Not saying that you can't succeed, because there are people who succeed. Not saying that you can't succeed, but it's such a difficult thing because you have to learn product market fit. You have to learn scaling up your team. You have to learn cash flow management. You have to learn hiring, recruiting. You have to learn how to invoice and dialogue with customers. There's so much for us to learn, right? Product research. On top of that, the whole world thinks it's cool to be a startup founder or CEO. So there's not many emotional support services for you. Everybody expects you to be successful. So when you're not successful, a lot of CEOs, they have issues because they can't share their struggles. You can't share it with one of your employees. Sometimes your family members won't understand because most people, if they live in a corporate world or the government world, they don't really understand the stressors on a business owner. So I'm saying that to share that this is part of the program, right? This is par for the course. Really focus on learning, focus on trying to stay alive. Take bets. I'm not saying don't take bets. I'm not saying that's what you have to do. But know that falling is just part of it. It's like riding a bicycle. If you're trying to ride a bike without falling, you're not going to learn how to ride a bike most times, right? So really learning to go with the punches, roll with the flow, and continue getting better. Now, from the investor perspective side, now that I also sit at the investors table, from now on, I will not invest in first-time founders. And this is why a lot of angels, investors, there's just too much of a learning curve, right? I did that, and I had a couple of brilliant people running the company, like brilliant, super smart guys, but it's just so much to learn. And one of the things I was sharing when I was mentoring one of these startups, I was like, hey, you need to focus on this, you need to focus on. They thought they could do everything. They thought they didn't need to focus on this. And 2 years later, they had to close down shop. Why? Because there was so many shiny objects in startup land in running your business that you think are really important that are actually not important. What's important? Getting customers, maintaining your cash flow, things of that nature. And for that reason, it's really tough for first-time business owners to get on the ground running and really lift off because there's just so much they have to learn. Legal issues, dealing with people who take the business and then try to run with your customers. How are you going to deal with that when something you work so hard for people? So there's just so much to develop on that end. That's why it's really tough for first-time founders. I think it's going to get a lot easier with ChatGPT, AI. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to help. I do provide support, and in terms of conversation, I try to respond to questions. So I do want to help and support you. So if you have any questions, any topics you want me to dive into, especially if you're a first-time founder or second-time founder, I'm more than happy. Just leave a comment below. We'll get to it. And if we do make a video on it, I'll make sure to shout you out. My name is Achimba Atande. This is Atande Advisors. I hope you have a great day. God bless.